Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Grey's Anatomy star Eric Dane being diagnosed with ALS, a woman who had her head reattached after getting decapitated, a debate about the worst physical pain you could experience as a human, and, of course, the ever-important debate of squirting. Let's start with Eric Dane.
All right, Grey's Anatomy star Eric Dane, aka McSteamy, has revealed that he has ALS. So, can you explain what that is for everybody?
Okay, so ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which occurs when people have progressive muscle weakness and paralysis that eventually will lead to death. So Eric Dane, he's pretty young, right? He's 52.
Mm-hmm.
This is the age range when people get diagnosed with this. So this happened to this actually is, it's terrible. It's one of the worst things that a person could get diagnosed with, and it's considered to be 100% fatal, actually. The average life expectancy is only about 14 months after getting diagnosed with this, honestly. You could live 5 years. Stephen Hawking amazingly lived years with it, but he's really one of the only cases that have ever been known to live such a long time with it. It's usually a death sentence, unfortunately. And we had an unfortunate circumstance of this happen with one of our friends. Now his father had ALS, so we already kind of knew about it. And then one day his voice started to change. It wasn't like a hoarseness. It was more like he just got this weird, like a froggy kind of voice. And it started, and as soon as it started, he was like, this is what happened with my dad. And he already knew right away, but there's not really a single test you could do to test for ALS. So they had to do a lot of different tests to see if maybe he had something else. And ALS is typically not usually genetic. It is in a few, maybe 5 to 10% of cases, but it's not usually genetic. So they were trying to hope that maybe he was having something else. And you just wouldn't, I mean, Maria, you were around when that happened with Steve. Like, you wouldn't imagine how quick it went from him losing his voice to being in a wheelchair and not being able to eat and breathe on his own within a year. It was the most insane thing I ever witnessed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like slowly watching somebody die.
So what happens, and this is also called Lou Gehrig's disease. Some of you might have heard it's the same thing. But what happens is that it starts off slow and it progressively gets worse. And it's also a degenerative disease. So it also breaks down your tissue and normal function as it's getting worse. And it destroys the nerve cells that control the voluntary muscles throughout the body. So when we think of voluntary muscles, we think of skeletal muscle. We have all different kinds of muscle in our body. There's cardiac muscle that controls the heart, and there's smooth muscle that controls the organs like the bladder and the stomach. But skeletal muscle is ones that we can control. So we can't say like, hey, uterus, do your thing. Hey, bladder's like a weird one. And so is the breathing, because we can control our breathing, and but if we stop breathing, it works on our own, and we can control part of our urinary tract system too, because we urinate and we're in control of that for the most part, especially not me as much as I get older, but that's a side note. So what happens with the skeletal muscle is your diaphragm, which is what, if you breathe in, you breathe out, you're lifting up your diaphragm. And when that can't work anymore and you're not in control of breathing anymore, then all of these things start happening. Your lungs are more susceptible to infection. You can't cough anymore. You're having a difficulty swallowing. And ultimately, that's how people end up dying from that. But it's just so terrible to hear why it happens, and they don't really know a whole lot about it, honestly, like why it happens, how to stop it. And they're doing research. Obviously, they learn more and more to keep people alive a little bit longer with it, but ultimately this doesn't sound good for him.
All right, so this next story is like, I don't know. This defies all medical knowledge I have or anything about how decapitations work. But when this woman was 16, she was in gym playing soccer and fell, injuring her right ankle and spine and tearing a muscle off both her shoulder blades. So, because of this accident, she ended up having 22 surgeries, which can you even imagine going through something like that to begin with?
No.
So then she gets diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and a year later, her neck became dislocated and she had to wear this halo brace. So when they removed the brace later on, her skull ended up detaching from her spine, which caused her to have an internal decapitation.
All right, so this makes sense because she was diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that disrupts the body's production of collagen and joint stability. So these people often have multiple joint dislocations throughout their life. So this is not abnormal for a patient that has this thing. What happened was, I guess when she had this halo and the doctor was removing it, he like accidentally detached her skull from her spine, because like I said, they don't have these normal connections at their joints and they could just move around way more easily than an average person. And that would be considered an atlanto-occipital dislocation. So it's essentially like the skull, the ligaments that are attaching the skull to the spinal column become detached, and you have this area where there's no protection of like the most vital structures of the base of the brain and the top of the spinal cord. And that's called an internal decapitation, because when we think about decapitation, it's like someone has a giant machete and is like cutting someone's head off. That's a decapitation. This is like the outside of the skin looks completely normal and they don't look like they're decapitated, but the vital structures could be decapitated. Which it's kind of like she wasn't really internally decapitated. It's just kind of the spinal cord at the top where it goes into the base of the brain was left unprotected. And when that happens in car accidents, let's say, there's like a 90% fatality rate when that happens, because think about getting in a car accident and having those vital structures not protected by the bones, right? So you have EMS. First, you have just the blunt trauma from the accident, and then you have EMS moving you and taking you to the hospital. And if they're not protected, it could lead to paralysis and it could turn off the vital organs, because in the base of the brain, it is responsible for making things like your lung and heart work. In this case, since it was in such a controlled environment per se that it was recognized right away, they were able to stabilize her and bring her and give her surgery and fuse her skull to her spinal column. So that area is now protected. And since then, she's had an additional 37 surgeries to fuse all of her bones all the way from her skull to her pelvis. So, which is outrageous. She can't really turn from side to side and move in any direction. I mean, think about your backbone moving and helping you with that. But she's alive still, and that's what they have to do because she just keeps dislocating so bad all the time. And like, you can't, I mean, dislocating your arm and stuff is a nuisance and it sucks, but like, you won't die from that, but you will die if your spinal column comes detached like that. So that's what happened in that case.
It is insane. So now she's 35 and she's had 37 total procedures related to this.
Yeah, and she calls herself a human statue because she can't really move like that. And it's crazy because she is doing physical therapy and stuff and learning different things that she could do with her body the way it is. But I mean, it's unfortunate, but it just has to be done, because otherwise she'd have to be in a cast or something all the time, because she just keeps dislocating all the time because of her Ehlers-Danlos. Guys, we are so excited that we've hit over 1 million downloads. So not only are we doing a grand giveaway with things like a signed copy of my book and the giant microbe, and What else are we doing? A
One free
grocery.
year to the grocery.
Yeah, so we're doing that, but we're also giving away 3 signed copies of my book as well, just because we've had such an overwhelming response.
Yeah, so to enter for the contest, all you have to do is head over to our Apple page and leave us a written review. Head over to Spotify, leave us a review, or head over to YouTube and subscribe. Screenshot that and email it over to us at stories@motherknowsdeath.com.
All right. So researchers at McGill University have done some research to find out exactly what causes the worst physical pain to humans.
So before we get into it, what would you think before reading the list? Because I'm thinking like, burns, of course, or getting shot have to be.
I would say giving childbirth. If you just asked me, that's what I would say. But some of these on the list, I could see that they are like they make sense for the most part.
So they're ranking the number one worst pain as complex regional pain syndrome. So get into what that is.
So it's a chronic neurological condition that happens after an injury that sets off a chain reaction to the body and causes the nervous system to kind of go haywire. It causes intense burning, throbbing, stabbing pain. And people that suffer from it say that it doesn't have anything to do with the original injury. It's just so much more painful. And it could cause such hypersensitivity on people that something like blowing like light breeze through them in the summer could cause them to have pain. Like they're just super triggered all the time. And I had a case in the grocery room, a mystery diagnosis of this a couple years ago on Instagram and in the grocery room. If you guys want to check out a picture of this, because this particular patient had discoloration in her skin so bad that one leg was like purple and one was white looking. It's crazy. And I've heard that from, if you would read the comments in the grocery room and on Instagram under this post of people that have gone through this, you could tell that they really were suffering, and there's really nothing they can do for it to make the pain go away, which is scary.
So number 2, we get into a bullet ant sting. I've never heard of this, but they're native to rainforests of Central and South Africa. So what's so painful about this?
It says that it triggers muscle spasms and it renders the affected area for hours afterwards, that due to the venom of the animal that it's causing. Like, it's called bullet ant sting because it's similar to the feeling of being shot. I personally do not think that this should be number 2 on the list because, like, how many people really experience this? I don't know. Like, if it's, I don't know. I just think that it probably hurts really bad, but like there's other things on this list, like your condition, for example, that isn't even on this list that you could say many more people suffer from. And
What, endometriosis?
yeah, that many more people suffer from and have pain with that didn't even make the top 10. Like, I think
Well,
this is so rando. I mean, there's probably lots of different snake bites, animal bites. I'm sure getting bit by a shark don't feel good. Like,
how
it's just
accurately
rando.
can you judge if one person has not gone through all of these things? So some of the other things they list is what you said, childbirth, and then finger amputation, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, kidney stones, migraine, etc. So I don't really, to me, I feel like there must be worse things. Like you're saying, what if your whole leg gets bit off by a shark? You don't think that's up there?
Well, that's why I think the bullet ant is rando, because there's definitely things that cause. I mean, people could get in a motorcycle accident, their leg could get ripped off. And
What
I'm sure
about
that,
one of those chimpanzees that's ripping people's faces off? Like
exactly.
that's not on the
That's
list.
why
That doesn't
that's
look
why
great.
that's rando. It's just it's so specific. Finger amputation. Listen, like when I cut my finger half off, that freaking hurts so bad. I mean, I think like I had natural birth 3 times against my will. I always say that. I had natural birth 3 times, which was up there. But like I could other things that happen is like when I cut my finger, like that freaking really surprised me how bad that hurt, because I cut through the nerve on my finger. Like, and it's still off years later. Like it's always going to feel funny for the rest of my life. So I agree with that. Other things like migraine and stuff, like, and listen, like, migraines, I've had them, they're terrible, but I feel like they're like a dull pain. I don't know, there's
Well,
just like a difference between the pains in these situations too.
to your point, having gone through endometriosis via migraine, I would say that endometriosis is significantly worse pain than a migraine.
Yeah, I mean, the migraine sucks, but for most of the time, if I take the medicine, it makes it go away. I know that there's people that like, and I've had times where like I just take the medicine and it just doesn't touch it. Um, and it is a frustrating thing to live with for sure. And I've never had kidney stones either, and people say that they're equivalent to like they could say that a man might feel a similar feeling, but like listen, that's number 8 on the list, okay? So like lots of other people are feeling that.
All right, so
What else did you cover everything?
I can't say the last one, so I'm not even trying.
Trigeminal neuroma or neuralgia. Yeah, it's referred to as suicide disease, so I'm sure it's pretty painful. It could be seen in MS patients, but this one causes pain on your face, but it could cause like sharp pains in your eye and stuff, which listen, like I always say this, like eye pain is the worst.
Well, I'm surprised there's no dental things in here either, because I think
That's
everybody
true.
that's had well, I've never had like a dental infection per se, but like I've had mouth pain and it just is unlike anything else. And it's very hard to dull it down once it starts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's just so many other things. It's just the list is a little. I mean, I'm expecting to see some of the things, and then other things you're just like, this is just kind of rando.
Yeah.
Like, why finger amputation? Why not toe amputation? Leg
Why not amputation generally? I can't imagine any
yeah.
amputation feels good.
Yeah.
It is very bizarre. All right, so on an episode of Science Quickly, they were exploring the concept of squirting, and I think the question everybody has in general is just, is this a real thing?
So people try to argue with this all the time, and I've been saying that it's pee for years, and people are like, no, it's not, and blah, 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 blah. So they were talking on this episode about this. There's not, first, I guess you should say that there's not like a ton of studies on this to say 100%, but just the things that people are doing to try to figure this out. And one was they were talking about this French gynecologist who decided to tell some people that worked with him, like, hey, we're going to be doing a research project, and tried to get some women that he worked with who were able to squirt to like
I'm like, this
join
seems
this
like workplace misconduct. I don't know.
Well, it wasn't in America. It was in France. So whatever.
They're a little more open sexually over there. So
and like listen, like they sometimes things have to be done in order to scientifically prove something, and this is something that I think is worth it because it's so annoying when people are telling you that it's not pee. So this is what they did. They had a bunch of these people that said that they were going to engage in sexual activity and they were going to squirt, and he was going to be able to test them throughout the entire process. So first he checked all their bladders, saw if they had pee and stuff, and were like, okay, you guys have pee in your bladder, everybody go to the bathroom right before you have sex. Okay, fine. And then he has them going into a room, and then he has them, partaking in whatever is going to cause them to squirt. But he says, before you feel like you're going to have an orgasm and you're going to squirt, make sure you call me, and I'm going to come back and take an ultrasound of your bladder again. Okay, so he goes and he takes an ultrasound of the bladder and sees that the bladder has already, within that short period of time, filled up all of the way. So then he says, okay, go back to your activity, finish it off, and then squirt. So they do that, they squirt. He comes back, he takes an ultrasound of their bladder again, and their bladders are empty. So right there, they figured out, and this is like obviously not like a controlled study and more stuff would need to be done or whatever, but right there, they're like, okay, the woman peed right before she started having sex. Right before she was about to have an orgasm, her bladder was filled with urine again. She had the orgasm and squirted. Afterwards, the bladder was empty. Therefore, whatever that fluid that came out of the bladder, and it's pee. So, and it was in multiple people. It's not just like one person. So now they're saying, okay, there's something that and they don't know if it's because of like the increase in blood vessel activity that is causing, which in theory, I guess it would cause you to pee more because it's pushing blood through your kidneys at a faster rate and maybe creating urine faster. But whatever happened in that interval between going to the bathroom right before having sex and then right afterward or right before orgasm, the bladder filled up. So that's what's happening right there. In theory, if the bladder is filling up that much, the pee might be less concentrated, so it might not be bright yellow because you just went to the bathroom 15 minutes prior to that. So that, and like when they looked at this chemically under the microscope and they did all chemical tests on it, they saw that there were things like uric acid in it, which would be found in pee. Like, it's pee. It's pee. I don't want to hear it. It's pee. And like, this can even be proven in real life. Like like, let's say, for example, you go to the bathroom and then you have sex and then right afterwards you have to go to the bathroom again. Like, you didn't have anything to drink. You didn't do anything. It's just like, this is what's happening. Like, there's something happening during sexual activity that's causing the bladder to fill up, and it's pee. So like, you might want to be, if you are doing porn and stuff, you might want to say like, oh no, you're having this female orgasm, because you don't want to act like you're pissing all over the dude, but like you are. That's what's happening.
This
End of
reminds
story.
me, when I was in school for photography, we learned about this photographer that set up cameras in couples' bedrooms, and then he like had them hold a tether cable with the trigger. So then he was like, okay, when you're orgasming, take the picture. And he took pictures of all these people's feet in their bed, like at the point of orgasm, and then did this whole show. And I thought it was so weird because my teacher thought it was like the coolest thing he ever saw.
That is cool. Like, why don't you think that's cool?
It's just so bizarre because it just looks like a bunch of pictures of feet. But it's like, that's the point of it. That's why when you go to art museums and stuff, or galleries, it's important to read the plaque, because otherwise you're just thinking you're looking at a bunch of pictures of feet, but actually there is some common denominator that connects them all. I thought this was nuts that they said the world record for squirting is 1.35 liters. That is a lot.
Which is like close to a 2-liter bottle of soda.
Yes.
But like, listen, like if you sat there and your bladder was like full, you ever have those times where like it feels like you're having an orgasm when you pee because it's like the best feeling in the world because you were holding it in for so long? It's like that much fluid could come out for sure. So,
and then it's like an Austin Powers style pee where you just pee for
it just
5
never
minutes.
ends. That's how gay pees all the time. Like, it's so weird.
He drinks like a case of fizzy every single day.
It's just weird. I'm like, sometimes he gets up in the middle of the night to pee, and I'm like, how the hell is he still in there? Like, what is happening right now? It's just like he's in there for like a while because I feel him like leave bed, and I'm like, this is so weird.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys so much. Please don't forget to submit your entry for the 1 million download giveaway, and we will see you tomorrow.
See ya. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.